Hello, class of 2026. You know, my first idea for this speech was to make it like class. I even ran this by some of you. I'd hide mics in the audience and call on you, parents and friends. And parents and friends, you should know that some of you were volunteered. But why would I want to do this? Because for me, teaching is a constant dialectic, a conversation between you and me. But relax, everyone, no mics, no cold calls. But I think we can make this at least a little participatory. Students, especially Mod B, Crim Pro, and Juries, I'm counting on you, and family and friends, please feel free to join in, and colleagues, you can do whatever you want. But raise your hand if there's something you put off because of law school that you can't wait to finally do. Raise your hand if you miss being a 1L. Oh, good, there's some of you. Now, raise your hand if the path you're taking now is different from the one you thought you'd be taking when you started law school. Interesting. So thank you for being game in this, my final conversation with you as a class. In many ways, I can relate to how you feel today. You made it. The anxieties of 1L year are over. You've learned a ton. You're ready to move on to practice. I've come through a similar journey coexisting with you as a junior law professor. But every endpoint is also a beginning and gives us a gift of reflection. And you're asking yourself, what kind of lawyer will I be? And I've been asking a version of that same question. And the big questions I keep coming back to are, what is the story we want to tell with our lives? And what mark do we want to leave on the world? And I'm going to share with you 3 questions to help us think through our answers. First, what have you learned that you will carry with you? I admit I like a blank slate, but a new beginning doesn't mean you're starting over. You begin your career with everything you've learned in and out of the classroom, from each other, and from teachers both informal and formal. You're also beginning at a time that has the feeling of both despair and hope. All around us, law is being wielded as a weapon and discarded as an inconvenience. Institutions and principles we thought were immutable are shifting in alarming ways. Technology is altering how we relate to each other and how we work. And we hold divergent views on every important aspect of human life, from privacy, the environment, who belongs, and whose voice matters. But you are hope. What you will carry into this changing world from your time here is something that no machine can replicate. Despite what Jude Law says, law is not the work of automatons or my new frenemy Claude, who I keep mentioning to everybody. Law without humans is just words and abstract rules. Law comes to life through human exertion. And you are that human element, understanding and explaining the law in context. You have the capacity to look at a legal outcome and ask, is this just? Who is advantaged and who is disadvantaged? Just because the law gives you the power does not mean you should use it. You also are leaving law school a place where you had to sit side by side with people whose views are different from yours. The impulse may now be to forget about those tensions. Instead, I encourage you to think about what you've learned from those conflicts. I do this because, believe it or not, there have been times I've disagreed with you and my colleagues. People don't see eye to eye. That's a fact of life, and that's also a fact of the practice of law. And how you manage that difference is what will set you apart. Second, what parts of you have you missed these past years? Figuring out your story means more than being a lawyer. I want you to recover the parts of you that got set aside during law school. Because law at its essence is an intensely human project in ways both positive and negative. It helps us understand each other, live with each other, hold each other accountable, hurt each other, and exert power over one another. And for much of my early life, my entire identity was that of a musician. That was how I communicated and processed the best. I stopped when I went to law school, and I'm still working on recovering that part of me. And it's not just about work-life balance. Learning a new piano piece is essential to helping me write. I sing in a small choir that has me in close contact with people outside of my social and professional circles, and I'm learning a lot. So do that thing you miss. Because the more we absorb humanity, the better we understand how law shapes, harms, and heals our world. Third, what do you want to do next? Our stories are constantly evolving. I met a 101-year-old woman at a Handel Messiah sing-along who said to me, "The moment you stop moving forward is the moment you stop living." Moving forward often means being uncomfortable, putting yourself in situations where you might be slightly out of your depth, being willing to learn new things. And at a time when everything feels at stake, this question of what next has urgency. You must ask yourself, am I doing enough? I wonder if I should pick up cases again. The answer is different from each of us, but it requires pushing ourselves in ways big and small and not making choices just because they are lucrative, popular, and the most insidious, the path of least resistance. Lastly, in figuring out your story, the emphasis is on the word your. Law school is a series of constant comparisons, right? But increasingly, the measure of your life is going to be against yourself. Your story is not a copy of others. There's pressure to conform and the myth that there is one single path. The challenge is to not blindly accept someone else's version of what's possible for you. I've made choices despite the advice of people, from my decision on where to practice as a PD to my leaving practice to teach. And as an Asian American woman, immigrant, and first-generation lawyer, I have acutely felt and still feel and ignored others' limits on what they thought I could or should achieve. There will be both skeptics and helpers along your way, and when your purpose is clear, you will do what is right and true to you. Graduates, take what you've learned, gather all the parts of you, and be singularly you as you fiercely, with clarity and a hefty dose of empathy, approach the future. Congratulations, class of 26. You've left your mark on UCI and on me. I will miss our encounters in the hallways and courtyard. Thank you for conversations that made me laugh, challenged me, encouraged me, and kept me current. I, along with all your teachers and those who love and cheer you on, we can't wait to see the mark you leave on the world and the stories you create for yourselves.